Hey everybody, Riot Mortdog here, and this is Walk the Dog Season 2. I'm gonna try to kick this off again and see how long I can do these for and how often. And yeah, I figured I'd start this back up. Honestly, the number of people that asked for Walk the Dog to come back really made me happy. So definitely wanted to try to find a way to bring it back. And this is me attempting to do that. Now you might be wondering, well, Mort, why aren't you outside walking? And that's because I live out in Washington and it is freaking cold out and rainy and everything like that. So when it's cold and rainy, you're going to get to see me walking in here in my office and talking about things. So yeah, right now I'm filming this. It's December 27th. I actually just finished filming the Monday morning meta report and figured while I was in here and I had some time, figured I'd record this and talk, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I figured I would actually start off with an interesting topic, and it's something that was taught to me way back in Nintendo, and it's called the Creator's Curse. And this isn't a video game exclusive thing. This is really for anybody who generally is out there creating anything, whether you're paper making a smolder, or you're an artist making a drawing, or a game designer making a game. There's something that my first boss taught to me, which was the Creator's Curse. And generally it's the idea that once you finish something, no matter how good it is, all you're going to see is the things you want to change, the things you want to be different, the things that should have been better if you just had more time. And you know, this was like, we were working on the Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, and it was like, oh, you know, if we could just get this done better, if we had more time, it could be more perfect. Some of you might have also heard this referred to as like, perfect is the enemy of good, and things like that. But generally, it's the idea that even when you finish something, all you're going to see is everything wrong with it. Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, because Lore and Legends is out, right? Like Lore and Legends, set 16. This is a set that I was very, very hyped about. I've been holding a secret for almost 2 years, working behind the scenes, trying to get it going. I've had the set mechanic that I was pretty confident in for a while, and it's out there. And generally the perception is really, really good. All of our metrics look really, really good. I mean, I saw Mark Merrill was finishing his Lore Finder. You know, players are out there enjoying it. I've seen just a lot of positivity. I've had a couple players reach out and say it's the best set ever. And you know what? All I can do right now, I'm losing my mind, because all I see are like, oh my God, we didn't get Jinx right. Oh my God, Zaun is just like not really playable. Oh, Aurelion Sol, man, if Aurelion Sol had been based off damage instead of number of casts, you could actually itemize Aurelion Sol with AP. Right. And so, you know, it's funny because we always talk about how like there's all these critics online and things like that. But the reality is I'm my harshest critic by a lot. And you could call this a character flaw. You could call it whatever you want. But again, it was just something that was taught to me of like, you're going to have to deal with this. The way it was taught to me was like, after you ship a game, like a Mario vs. Donkey Kong game. And again, this was back when games couldn't be patched. Right? It was like, in fact, here, you know, right after you ship this game, wait 6 months and then play it again, right? Because you're not gonna be able to like take your eyes off of it and see all the things that you could have done better, you could have done differently. Difficulty curve is often a common thing here, because like, again, if you're playing the game every day and you're a new designer, you're like, well, these levels are easy. And then you stop thinking about it every day for 6 months. And you go back and play it and you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking with these levels? You know? And it's the same with set 16. All I can think of is just like, how did we let this happen? How did we... And it's such a weird thing because it's so negative. But the reality is the set is so positive, right? And so there's this eternal conflict in your head of like, is it good enough? Could I have done better? And I imagine if you're watching this and you're anyone who's ever created anything, you probably have all the same regrets and things like that. It's like, oh, I could have done this differently. And man, like my list right now for set 16 is long, but So the question is, well, what do you do about this, right? What do you take from this that doesn't just send you down the rabbit hole of despair and always wanting to be better? And this is why I always tell my team that, like, the most important thing you can take away from any of this is the lessons you've learned, right? It's the things that you need to take away so that you don't let them happen again, right? Because the positive here is, like, the unlock mechanic was a big swing at opening the depth of the game, and I think that has generally been a success. But, like, is every unlock mechanism good? No. Am I glad we tried all the different ones we did? Absolutely. Because it allows us to understand what type of unlock mechanics are good and what type of unlock mechanics are not so good, right? Did I really want people rushing to slam items on 1-3 and 1-4 to hurry up and unlock stuff? No. Would I do that again? Probably not, you know? But do I think star levels on a core vertical like Galio are generally healthy? Yeah, somewhat. I think it's fun sometimes if you can unlock an early Galio with a Sona 3 or something like that. But on the flip side, is T-Hex really the right spot? Well, maybe, you know, and T-Hex is such an interesting discussion because T-Hex also reveals some of the, like, power relative to the unlock itself, right? Like, if T-Hex was balanced the same as, say, I don't know, Galio, would T-Hex really be a problem? Probably not. But T-Hex is really, really strong and, you know, and was all set. And now people finally caught on and optimized the build and things like that. You know, and then there's stuff of like, well, could I have caught that? Or, you know, and in the Piltover case, it's like, well, we did catch that. I was on the Church of T-Hex. I don't know. I'm getting off topic a little bit here. But the thing I wanted to share with you again is that even when you launch something great and you do an amazing job, if you're truly somebody who's pushing to make yourself better and your team better and things like that, you will find yourself suffering from this creator's curse. And you need to channel that creator's curse in a healthy way so that you find, you know, the ways to construct this into a positive thing for, you know, your next project, your next adventure, your next set, whatever you want to call it. And that's really important. So again, this goes out to any of you watching. Anytime you create anything, just know. And to anyone who's out there kind of going, well, like, maybe I don't enjoy set 16, or maybe there are things like, didn't they see this? Again, all I can share with you is I am the harshest critic to our own work here. And there are definitely things that, you know, I wish were better. But at the same time, the set's looking really, really good. So, yeah, and it's funny because I find myself, you know, discording Tim and Kent over the break and just sort of being like, hey, you know, how are we feeling about this? And, you know, part of that, it's also tricky, though. I think the power dynamic gets a little tricky there because, you know, you can't just vent to Kent and Tim. It's like, well, my boss is coming in here and saying this is wrong and this is wrong, or did we catch, you know, for example, Tim and I were talking today and he's like, you know, the T-Hex buff, I don't think was actually a problem. And I actually told him I agree. I think the T-Hex buff didn't actually do anything other than placebo make people think they should play it more, you know, but sometimes we have to do that. Even though T-Hex had always been strong, I was in the T-Hex nerf. I mean, I literally won our Riot Rumble with T-Hex showing how dominant it was. And, you know, fast forward, here we are. So it is what it is. But yeah, anyway, figured I'd start this off with that concept of the creator's curse and things like that. Cool. If you've made it through this, you can post questions on my Discord or in the comments of these videos, and I will start digging up questions from those. I want to try to find interesting questions and topics to talk about each day. And that's the thing. Sometimes, you know, if we don't have interesting topics, I might skip that day or whatever, figure out how I can do these. But again, figured I'd bring this back. One of the general questions is a really silly question, but I figured I'd answer this now. Someone was like, how are the cats doing? How is Sephiroth doing? Sephiroth has grown a lot. Sephiroth is healthy, living his best life, enjoying being in Leo's room, still isolated because, as far as we know, that disease is never going to go away, and so the cats have to stay separate. But Sephiroth is happy. Occasionally, when I go in my daughter's room and check, he's grown a lot. You can tell he's no longer malnourished. He's happy. He's definitely mews for attention. Very talkative still, but definitely a good cat and things like that. And yeah, so cats are good. Ah, let's see what else. You can tell I've prepared a lot for this one. um, Someone asked generally, how am I doing? Generally okay. I think, in fact, that's probably the best topic to talk about here is as we're ending the year, it's sort of a reflection on how are things going for me, what's next for TFT, things like that. How did the year go? I actually had one of my mods come and visit, and he played Magic for a few days, and he asked me an interesting question, which was like, are you happy? And, generally in like non-work terms, yeah, right? Like things with my wife and I are great. Kids are doing good. Life is good. I love living out here in the middle of nowhere. Work's a trickier one, right? Because as I just said, Lore and Legends was sort of one of my last big, or my most recent big, like, I think I can make TFT an even better game with this set mechanic. Let's try it. And we did. And turns out I think we did make it better. So now it's a question of what's next and how much of that is, my involvement and things like that. So I think that's a big thing I need to reflect on is sort of where we go next. But the reality is I do look at Lore and Legends and I still think we can do even better. Like that's the cool thing, right? Is I look at this set, and originally when I had pitched Lore and Legends, I was like, is this the best TFT is ever going to be? Is this the finalized set? And I think the answer is no, right? I think there are still things I look at that we can improve. I still think there are things that have been around for a while and maybe it's time for them to take a break. I think there are still more innovations we can do. Some of it's on the most basic fundamental level. Like you're going to laugh, but even something as simple as like targeting right now just doesn't seem to be where it could be. And we can improve that for, the players who are playing 400 games and things like that. Some of it is just making sure that lines are interesting and like less frustrating. I think Kindred, I don't want to focus too much on specific pieces of content because it's too easy to go like, oh, well, this one champ spell could have been better or whatever. But it's more like holistically, how can TFT expand even more? Or does it even need to, right? Because I think when this set came out, a lot of what people were struggling with was like, is this set too complicated? Is it going to be too much? And I think we've done a good job of making that not as true, right? Things like Ionia can be generally played pretty well. Demacia being playable has been really healthy for the game. Even at lower elos, I think things like Yordles are pretty easy to play. I think one of the bigger innovations this set, though, that I think could be explored for future TFT, I was talking to my boss about this, and he pointed it out, was that there's actually a bunch of like hidden resource systems within this set, right? Whether it be the Bilgewater Serpents, which is less hidden, or the Bard rerolls, or the Yordles and their ability to, generate resources and things like that. Like, we used to say drip econ was always bad, but if everything's got some drip econ and drip econ in different ways, is it truly bad? And I think the Bilgewater shop is one of the better examples of this because it's drip econ that can be drip econ, but it can also be powering up the trait. It can also be, converting that drip econ into items. Like there's a whole resource debate you can do. And then it's like, how long do you greed it, right? Like, I think one of the most common things we see is people playing Bard for a long time and then keeping him in too long, costing them player health and going, oh, oops. It's almost like mini high-risk traits built into the game, which is really cool. So it's not just the unlock mechanic that has a bunch of innovations in this set, but it's like some of the traits as well. But then, of course, that leads to the next question of like, okay, so it's another set. Can you make a whole bunch of new mechanics? Because I think one of the things we've done in the past that has been bad is like, we'll make a good trait, like let's say KDA, and then we'll be like, well, that was good. Let's do it again, slightly different. And then you get Street Demon, and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't really want more of this, you know? And using Bilgewater as the example, if we tried to make another trait that had a shop, like, oh, this is just Bilgewater, right? And player reactions are inherently about that, where they're like, okay, this is just another summon. Every time we released a summon, the first comment is, oh, it's just the summon from previous set, despite any differences and things like that. So it's innovating in different ways. And then, you know, making sure that we don't save those innovations every time for the open sets. I know one of the things we're going to have to struggle with right now is that the perception is that set 13 and 16 and 10 were all really, really good, but the sets in between were a little less good. So got to make sure that's less true. But, and like I said, all of these are like really, really tough fundamental questions. Also, while a bunch of things are happening in the background to continue the TFT, you know, and again, what's your impact? What do you do there? So it's just a lot of fundamental stuff. And then, you know, this year in particular, there was that month and a half where I wasn't on TFT for a bit. And like, what did that do? And like I said, what's my role on it? You know, I had a DM from a player yesterday, and it was the most backhanded DM I've gotten in a while. And they sent me a list, a picture of their end game where they had lost with Lux 3. They went 6 with Lux 3. And they said, hey, Mort, love your game, love all the things you do, but maybe it's time to pass the torch on balance, because this is pretty terrible. And again, it's just such a backhanded thing where it was like, okay, you like the game, you like TFT, but you hate balance, but also you think I'm doing all the balancing, which is cute and fine, you know, and it's just like, okay, that's fine, you know, but at the same time, you know, do I want that player having that experience where they're getting 6 with Lux 3? Not really. No, obviously not, you know. How do we make sure that's less true? What are the frameworks I can build to make sure that we don't end up in that situation? 3-star forecast is a whole other separate problem right now where, you know, if you look at what we've done this set, some of those numbers are like inflated to insane degrees, right? Set 14 and 15, 3-star forecasts were always 3x their 2-star version. The one time we broke this rule, which was good, was set 10 Ari, who shot 2 bolts instead of 1. Because single target 3-star forecast was never going to win a fight ever. Like, you could hit for 10,000, it wouldn't matter. And I think we're going to have to do more of that, and we didn't do enough. But like this set, we tried. Misfortune was 5,000 at launch, which was too high, but still insane. Other champions are definitely higher. I think Lux is like 5 or 6x. Like, she's certainly not the old framework. But does Lux need something else different? Maybe. Like, for example, should Lux 3 have... Because currently Lux hits 2 targets with their primary part, and then any other targets get hit like a tickle. And it's like, well, maybe Lux 3 should have been all targets get hit by that maximum primary damage. Is that too strong? Maybe, maybe not. You know, is there a condition where... Because one of the big changes that really hurt 3-star forecasts in particular was roles revamped, right? Because back in the day, you had a 3-star forecast, you would give them like a BT, they would take damage, and they had enough health that taking damage would always cause them to cast their spell. They would cast their spell, which was huge, do a bunch of damage, heal up, and go infinite. Now, because of roles revamped, they have to auto a couple times, or generate mana. You know, and so that can lead to a situation where your Lux casts once, kills 4 units, great, and then it takes another 7 seconds to cast her spell again, and during that time you lose and you die, right? Is that correct? Maybe not. Is it supposed to be something more creative where, you know, 3-star 4, like, again, it's too specific here, and I'm getting too much into problem generation, but like, was Lux literally supposed to be, you know, when she casts her spell, casts it 3 times, or, you know, is her mana like, is there just supposed to be 3-star 4 cost mana generation is 10x so that they can constantly cast their spell? And again, where does that fall in relation to prismatic traits, things like that? But again, all of this is like, it's fine. It's just stuff we've got to solve, and how much can we figure out? And then, of course, all of that gets bucketed into just general balance, you know. So, yeah. I don't know. You can tell my mind's kind of all over the place. This is what happens on a break, right? Like, all I'm thinking about right now is sort of like, well, here's the things with 16 that could have been better. We got to fix those, make those better. But also, 17, we got to get that going. We have to take the learnings from 16, see what we can apply to 17, if that's particularly helpful, see if that can get even better. And then we got to make sure 18 and 19 are ready. 19 is going to be kicking off its like real path, and so making sure that's good and good go. And then is there any like bigger stab, right? Because like I said, I've had this unlock mechanic as a bigger stab since set 10. So what's the next big stab? Is there something else? Is there, you know? And yeah, so that's a lot of what's going through my head right now. But figured I'd share kind of all of that. And like I said, all of this is under that theme of like, it never ends, right? This is a game that's been out 6 years now. It's a live service game, and we just want to make sure players are happy. But it never ends, right? You know, you don't get to ship set 16 and then just savor and enjoy it. You have to immediately take the lessons, take the fixings, improve it, things like that, and go from there. By the way, this is now like 20 minutes into this, and this is the first time I've used this equipment in a while, so I sure hope this worked. If I have a 20-minute video of silence, that's going to be really awkward, and I'm going to be really, really grumpy. So we'll see afterwards. But yeah, that's generally what's going on in terms of set 16 land and things like that. Otherwise, yeah, I've been walking, been working. Trying to think what else. Been playing a lot of Magic. We did a ton of drafts and things like that. Magic is so much fun. But, you know, it's funny. I was digging through some of my old paperwork, and that's where I found that old Nintendo letter that I had posted. But one of the other things I found was in all my drawings from like high school, where I used to just make Magic cards. I found like probably 300 or 400 cards I had just made on paper of Magic cards. And I was thinking about that a bit as well with things like Riftbound, Legends of Runeterra, and Magic. And it's like, why is TFT so much more difficult to make? And it's like, well, because on a card, it's really just, you know, fill in the cost, fill in the text, do some playtesting, no problem. The cost to create those is just so much less. Whereas like even a simple 1 cost in TFT, we haven't really like which champion's animation it is can make a massive difference, right? And man, the number of things in 16 I have found recently that's like, oh yeah, turns out the spell should be fine and should work totally as you think, but then it's like, oh, because you didn't program the targeting correctly and it just misses. Like, what did I learn the other day? I learned Ryze's spell can actually miss. Ryze shoots his little Hadouken, and if the targets are moving and it doesn't hit anything, it'll just pass through. It is not a targeted spell. And I was like, what? We have a 5 cost whose spell can miss. I know Tim found that with Vhagar. Aurelion Sol's Meteors can also miss. And it's stuff like that that like a paper card game you don't have to deal with, right? I've been saying for 6 years, the hardest part about balancing TFT is the assumption it works correctly. Jinx is another one. I showed Kent and Tim a TikTok where there was a Jinx trying to kill the Scuttle Crabs by herself with Ginsu's. And for whatever reason, it went into overtime and she almost failed because clearly her missiles just aren't working properly on moving targets. You know, and thankfully Giovanni rescripted that, but stuff like that is just why, like, because Jinx as a concept, like if you look at Jinx as a paper concept, it's so simple, right? It's, you know, auto 3 times harder, basically. It's Your auto attacks get replaced with a triple auto attack that hits really hard. Cool, that's it, right? And we can figure out the number of, well, if she's going to do a triple auto attack, it should be this much. Great. But it turns out if that triple auto attack somehow bugs against moving targets or at certain attack speeds and certain damage thresholds goes over, or what we were suspecting for a while, which was because she'd shoot 7 rockets really, really fast towards a target, but the first 2 would kill it, there's 5 wasted rockets in the air. And if those wasted rockets are wasted damage, is it even worth 3-starring her? You know, like stuff like that can make such a massive difference, because it's weird that we're like a card game, a draft game, mixed with a like combat simulator. And so a lot of the skills to make TFT good aren't just the like card game design and thought pattern, but it's also the like almost like your Dark Souls combat feel, where it's like making sure things feel right and stuff like that. So yeah, anyway. All right, well, this has been episode 1 of Walk the Dog, the return of Walk the Dog. Like I said, post questions if you want me to answer anything specific. I'll be looking to mostly provide insight into what you guys want, rather than just these like weird vent sessions on how lore and legends is going. But again, this is also mostly to illustrate to you guys that like this is a lot of what we have to think about every day, is figuring out these challenges and things like that, because you know, I may not have 400 games played like some of our top players, but definitely evaluating the game from outside pretty constantly and things like that. And yeah. But yeah, like I said, these will come up sporadically as I can get to them, when we can, things like that. So post questions, upvote questions. If you're not on, like I said, you can do them on the YouTube as well. I'm just going to find questions I think are interesting and worth talking about. And yeah. Likely I'll also talk a little bit more about 2026 and things like that as that gets more solidified. And yeah. All right, cool. Well, hopefully you guys enjoy the return of Walk the Dog. I will, like I said, do it when I can. And yeah. All right. That's going to do it for me. Until next time, take it easy.